It's Wednesday, the middle of the week, but there's no middle ground here. Today we're going where silence has been too long for too long. Silence has been too loud for too long. You spend years studying, you pay your fees, you ace your exams, only to be told, sorry, your admission was wrong. That's the harsh reality facing hundreds and possibly thousands of Nigerian students across the country. From UNICAL to other universities, reports are surfacing of institutions intentionally admitting more students than they are accredited to train, especially in high-demand programs like dentistry, medicine, and engineering. The result? Students left hanging, futures in limbo, and a system that's cashing in on broken promises. Today on Jasiri, we're asking, is Nigeria's higher education system scamming its own students? And who is being held accountable? But first, yesterday we had a deep and sobering conversation on the deadly evolution of cultism and gang violence in Nigeria. Recently, we spoke about the violence in Mushin, a community now symbolizing what so many across the country are facing: fear, loss, and a frightening sense of normalized violence. But as we established on the show yesterday with Cheta Inwanze, partner at SBM Intelligence, this isn't just a Mushin problem. It's a Nigeria problem, it's a community problem, and it's a family problem. From Lagos to Benin, Warri to Port Harcourt, what started as campus cults have now morphed into dangerous criminal empires, exploiting poverty, hijacking political channels, and turning our cities into battlegrounds. With over 1,600 deaths in 5 years, according to SBM Intelligence's Gangsters Paradise report, we're looking at a national crisis hiding in plain sight. And yesterday, Cheta walked us through the data, the turf wars, the civilian casualties, and the state failures. And today, we pick up where we left off, because the questions are still urgent. Why are communities like Mushin still unprotected? Is the government turning a blind eye for a reason? And what happens when gang rules collapse and civilians become fair game? And how do we reclaim our cities before the culture of violence becomes permanent? So ladies, we were having this conversation yesterday, but we weren't able to really dig into it ourselves after we spoke to Cheta because of time. Time is never enough, but we'll keep that for another conversation. And it was a very just sobering conversation. We started last week when we spoke to Israel, one of our correspondents who had covered the recent violence in Mushin, and he had spoken to the father of a 10-year-old boy who was killed in the crossfire in these cult clashes that have spilled over from campus, university and tertiary institutions or higher institutions that had spilled over and then are now in our communities and in our streets. It's a lot. It's a lot. You know, for me, because I grew up in Isolo, maybe Mushin was very close to home for me, because there is no way you're going to get to Isolo and not pass through Mushin except you pass Oshodi, Sele, or the other way. And you will find out that this is not just, we're not looking at a today problem. Yes. This is something that has been, it's been there forever. And the bad thing is that it's like a festering cancer. At first, you might just see a bump, but what is really causing the problem is in deep. Yeah. And this is something that has eaten into the very fabrics of some of our communities, like Agege, yes, Mushi. You find some pockets in Yanokbaja. You know, all those high density areas where the population is a lot and maybe the living standards are not so high. And that means that half of the time, the children growing up in those communities can only see people like Egbo Adubo. Yes. You know, that's a Yoruba balance for like neighborhood brother. That sort of street mentor. Because we have absent parents who are hustling to keep food on the table. And not just educated parents that are working in banks. I'm talking about mothers who have to leave home as early as 5 a.m.
to go to the market, to
set up their shops. So their children are left unattended most of the time. Tolu called it one name. Latchkey kids. Yes. And you know, my sister would tell me that sometimes it happens in London too, where children would have to go to school themselves and come back home on their own.
Where did that change? Because there was a time where it was normal. We looked forward to, okay, I'm going to the market.
When we had saner, when times were saner. But now we're beginning to see, you know, there are many things that we don't look at as so bad.
But after some time, we used to see all those uncles that would just sit around in the house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We used to joke about them that when it's raining, you say, Brother Lagbaja, Eba and Cash Olori wire.
Because they're
That means
always
they have
there.
no discernible work.
Yeah.
They are not employed. They are not doing any business.
They are
just
always
hang
around,
around
sha.
in communities. And do you know that they see the community more than a lot of us?
Now they know what's happening.
They know what's
who is
happening.
who.
They know where your children are going,
Yeah.
who they're seeing. Do you know some of them even go as far as blackmailing some of them to be able to get things from them? And at the same time, give them advice that they themselves don't know better than.
Remember that Cheta shared the story of the family, a husband and wife who are based in Badagry
Yes.
and work, I think, in VI. They leave home for the week, not in the morning. From Monday to Friday, they leave home and they leave the care of the younger ones to a 12-year-old. So if there's an emergency, if not, let's not even go as far as an emergency. If there's a situation, that 12-year-old is going to look for the closest adults. The closest adult doesn't mean the best adult.
The best adult.
Doesn't mean the safest adult.
Yes.
You know, what are you doing?
It's such a ripple effect.
It's such a ripple effect, and I'm careful to not necessarily say parents are to blame, but then I'm wondering how are you having kids that you can't cater for, and I think that's a whole other conversation, especially the population conversation. But at the end of the day, as much as we want to say that poverty is not the only factor, it's a main factor. And he made that connection for us yesterday, but it worries me. So after the conversation yesterday, I was just looking again at, you know, what are the stories about all these gangs? Ladies and gentlemen, some of these Nigerian cults, as we said yesterday, have gone very, very international. Very, very international.
I saw a little bit of a video clip where they were using machetes on each other. That was part of the issues we had with Dubai authorities, and they just wanted Nigerians not to come
carrying bad behavior outside.
I went to said something about it in Italy. I was so shocked by the account that she gave.
There's an
article.
I'm looking at an article from The Spectre from February 2025, right? February. The Nigerian drug mafia is heading to Britain. They have made inroads from Italy and Spain. Now they're headed for Britain and the UK. And they say at the top of the article, it's an established fact that most of Britain's drug trade is controlled by Albanians. There is some competition from Turks and Pakistanis, but Albanians dominate the industry with their business-like methods. They may soon have another partner in crime. Nigerian gangs are increasingly making their presence felt in Europe. This week, that was February 25, they were among 27 people arrested in coordinated police raids in Spain, Italy, and Albania. They focus on drug trafficking, human trafficking, prostitution. And these are the same cults. So you're even now internationally, you're hearing IA, you're hearing Black Axe, you're hearing Buccaneers. They're making an unfortunate, infamous name for themselves. But coming back to the local context, he spoke about the weapons, small arms and ammunitions. Nigeria has a small arms and ammunitions problem. You can talk about the situation in the Sahel and the destabilization of some of the governments there and how those small arms are finding their ways through your porous borders and your lack of security and monitoring. They make their ways into the country. You talk about politicians who arm some of these gangs right before elections, but guess what? They don't recall the arms. So when the elections are over, when they've served their purpose for the politicians, they are left to they become monsters on the rest of us.
Cheta talked about the economic angle, that while they are working for some of the so-called politicians, of course they get funds. But when the elections are over and they no longer have need of them as they should, there's a death in their pocket. And when there is no money, they have to find other ways to get money. And that's when they now resort to violence, extortion, and, you know, all these other vices that cause casualties because they have to make money. That's why these local thugs have the audacity, the effrontery to walk up to a person and demand money of you. And nobody is good. There's no impunity. He kept saying that impunity yesterday, nobody is holding you responsible.
And that's
like
it's a free-for-all. An accountability problem in every aspect of Nigeria's life is a problem. Accountability, the dearth of it, the lack of it, the unwillingness
to be accountable.
To be accountable is a problem. Insofar as I think we said it on this table, insofar as there are people who are benefiting from these drug-related crimes, the chaos, the impunity, forget it. It is something that will continue to thrive.
You know, this thing you said about accountability, yesterday was an unscheduled public holiday. So somebody I know came and met me and was just saying, off the cuff, the mother is going through radiation and she's in a public hospital here in Lagos. and she's taking chemotherapy, and it's supposed to be on a schedule of 3 days throughout. Do you know that?
You broke yesterday.
They did not show, the person told her it did not show up yesterday because it was a public holiday. She had started it the night before. She was supposed to take it in certain intervals, and she's supposed to be there for 3 days. So nurses were there, some doctors doing rounds, but the person was meant to attend to her.
Nowhere to be found.
Nowhere to be found.
Impunity.
Well, let's not even, if you want to talk healthcare system, that is another big conversation where you see people, you're just talking about them not even coming. How about those that are told to pay for for fuel, to be able to power generators, that be able to power the machines that they use for X-ray, radiation, or chemo? I'm like,
so accountability in healthcare. We're talking about accountability in security. And after the break, we'll talk about accountability in education as well. But I just want to take this headline. See, I went through the rabbit hole yesterday. Yes, Africa Center for Strategic Studies in late October 2024 had a headline in a report, Black Axe, Nigeria's most notorious transnational criminal organization. From a month ago, from COA, Nigerian mafia in Italy, yellow heroin, prostitution, and arms coming from the cults. And then, of course, if you just do the deep dive, put in Nigerian cults, put in international, the things that will come up. And we're not curbing it here. And you know, I told you guys after the show, I was on, I live online, I was online, and there's a city in the U.S. where they've had a similar issue. And I was talking about the mayor of that city and what he decided to do. And I found it to just be quite interesting in terms of how he has shifted things. And that's what tells you about intentionality. So the mayor of Baltimore is a young man named Brandon Scott. And Baltimore, if you know, in the U.S., is one of the cities with a very high violence and gun rate, particularly among the African-American community. But what he did is he invested in youth and community safety. He launched 42 summer camps, giving them somewhere to go. 29 literacy programs, educating them. Then he also extended the rec hours. So recreational centers where you can go and swim, play basketball, they don't close to 11. So instead of them closing at 4 or 5, and then you have that 5 to 11, there's still somewhere for these children to go until they go home. He organized block parties, opened public pools for safe recreation, and then reopened several schools for summer learning. So even during summer, you have somewhere to what? Go. Guess what? Crime has dropped by 62%.
And that is why I say, if we need to do something, we can.
And we don't need to reinvent the wheel.
No, we just copy from where we've seen it before.
Benefiting from it, who are holding the system hostage, then there is no progress. We are like stuck in the mud.
It works for them. You know who? I can't remember. There's somebody came on the show and he said that they were talking and they said, why are we complaining about the system? We complain that the system doesn't work. But what if the system is working the way it was designed to work? The system is working for somebody. It's working for some.
Of course.
Obviously, the system is not working for us, but it's working for some. Therefore, where you find chaos in Nigeria, where you find things broken that are not working the way the general populace expects it, someone's making money, that system is working the way it's supposed to work for some people.
Exactly. For some people, you look at this holiday now, and I'm wondering that, okay, an intentional government that knows that they have a problem in their hands. There are some of these very vulnerable communities that a lot of focus need to be put. Have you ever been to Mushi? Mushi is like, when they're talking about urbanization, sometimes I think this is a community that they need to shut down and restart. Because the way the place is designed, you know, there are so many alleyways, places where people can hide and do stuff. There's a market in the center of the community that a lot of people from all over come. So spaces like recreational spaces
that give the kids something to do.
So during the holidays, it's either the children are going with their mothers or fathers to their workplaces, hawking goats, playing on the streets, just generally doing nothing. Where do you think these children will put their energy into? That's when one of those brothers will say, take this drug, go and give it to that person.
Let me hold the lid.
Hold this. Go and put this in your mother's house. And they will give them, you know, stipends.
And then for
a child that is hungry, which any of us will buy biscuits and sweet for us, somebody will just hand you 1,000 naira. And 1,000 naira is biscuit,
especially if he has younger ones, especially if his parents, his family
of course, the mother is in the market.
You use that one kid, say, mommy, I bought this for the house, and that's how it starts. You want to provide, you want to take care of things in the house, you want to, and then that responsibility comes power, and then you want more, and then you avail yourself to more.
And let's not forget that there are a lot of people and young adults in Nigeria don't feel like they belong.
Yeah.
So these gangs are also providing a sense of family, a sense of belonging, not just giving them power. You know, I've always told you, Nigerians, we like power. Wherever we can exercise that power. So these gangs give them protection, they give them a sense of power, but then they also give them belonging and family. Family structures are broken. Family units are broken. I still want to continue to use Baltimore as an example. It's called the Comprehensive Violence Prevention Plan, and I spoke about it just a little bit. Guess what? Compared to this time last year, for May 2025, the city has seen a 23.6% drop in homicides, a 23.4% drop in non-fatal shootings, the fewest number of homicides in the first 5 months of any year on record. Because there's intentionality, there was investment.
Because there's intentionality. Okay. All right, so on that note, let's take a break. Up next on Jasiri, these aren't just administrative errors, they are deliberate decisions that cost young people years of their lives in the mental health and, in some cases, their futures. When a university admits students into a program that it knows it cannot support, that's not education. That is exploitation. So after the break, let's speak with Mojeed Alabi. He's the team lead and editor-in-chief, DevReporting, about degrees on hold, the admissions scam in Nigeria's higher institutions, what's really happening behind the scenes, and what needs to change now. This is Jasiri. We'll be unpacking this and more after the break.
Thank you for staying with us. You can join the conversation on social media. We are at News Central TV. Now today, we're confronting a crisis hiding in plain sight across Nigeria's higher education system. One that's not just about overcrowded lecture halls or underpaid lecturers, but about intentional deception by institutions meant to safeguard the future. Recently, we spoke about the UNICAL admissions scandal, where dentistry students, for example, are now being told their degree may be worthless years after paying fees, may not even get a degree after all, years after taking exams and dedicating their lives to a dream. They have been told to, quote, go and learn a trade after being told by the provost of their faculty that, quote, we thought some of you would fail, end quote. Light Rain Media Organization has put out several articles on the issue, but this is not just a UNICAL problem. Reports are emerging that schools are knowingly admitting far more students than their programs are accredited to handle. But this isn't just about one department, one school, or even one profession. It's a system that feeds on desperation, profits from hope, and leaves young Nigerians stranded academically, financially, and emotionally. Joining us to break it all down is Mojeed Alabi. He's team lead and editor-in-chief at DevReporting. He's also chairman of the Education Writers Association of Nigeria. Mojeed, welcome back to the show. Good to see you. Not good to see you on this topic.
Yep, but good to always be good to see each other.
It's all good.
Yeah. I was very excited when I knew you were a guest because I know you're going to help us, to x-ray this very critically. Our recent conversations about the admission scandal at UNICAL, involving dentistry students, honestly, it left everybody here shocked. And, we were determined and wanted to shed more light on this issue. So, Mojeed, the provost openly admitted that the university over-admitted to offset failures. How widespread is this practice across Nigeria University? And why has it been allowed to continue? Because just asking a little, a lot of students are on break now. Yeah. Just talking to some people's field children and everything, everybody alluded to the fact that this happens a little more common than we know about.
Yeah. So we shouldn't be shocked or surprised.
Yeah, so I'm surprised that
we are surprised.
That we're surprised.
Yeah, I'm surprised that you are surprised. So it actually became something of a culture. And, there are layers to accreditation in Nigerian universities. There is a difference between the National Universities Commission, and there's a difference between National Universities Commission and regulatory bodies. So you have regulatory bodies like COREN, regulatory bodies like ICANN, regulatory bodies like MDCN, like the Council of Legal Education, different bodies. And the reason is very simple. Sometimes there's a difference between academics and practice. You can study law and not be able and not be able to practice if you are unable to actually do certain things. You can study accounting and not being able to meet up with the requirement for practice outside there. And that's clear. And that is why they believe that those who are in practice must also at least meet with those who are in the academic, so that they will be able to at least understand what the curriculum should be and what they should have. So in this case, for instance, it is not that it is new. The university had been told as early as 2013, 2014 by MDCN that you have specific number that you must admit based on your capacity. They look at the staff strength, they look at facilities. So what they have given them over time is you cannot admit more than 10 dentistry students. So for medical, you can admit up to 100. So because probably in the teaching hospitals, you have this, but for dentistry, you can only have just 10. But because the schools believe that there is this excesses, maybe you have also seen it over time. You have about 1.5, 1.8 million seeking admission. You have just fewer spaces.
About between 500 and 700,000 spaces.
Will gain admission every year. But do you know what? Something is surprising. There are schools that students are actually not opting to go. Do you understand? There are schools that students are actually not opting to go. The reason is that, one, for insecurity, for distance, so many reasons. So there is a kind of a concentration in some areas where people feel that we're a bit free, probably there won't be strike, then life is a bit, and that is why when you look at the statistics of the most subscribed institutions in this current UTME, this last, at the policy meeting conducted by JAM, hosted by the minister, you had, it used to be University of Ilorin, because Ilorin didn't used to go on strike. So it used to be the most subscribed.
Wow.
This year, Ilorin fell to number 3, because people are now coming down to Lagos. So Lagos State University is now number 1 most subscribed. It has about 70-something thousand candidates who want to go to LASU. Now, out of that figure, LASU can only take maximum of about 8,000. So the question you are going to ask, how do you do it?
So, sorry, before we get to that question of how do you do it, just looking at the quota, if we can get that slide back up, you'll see that a majority of the dentistry programs in Nigeria are not, a lot of them can't even have, are not supposed to have dentistry students. But then the other ones, you see 10 here, 15, you see 15 here. Very small numbers, see it here, 15, 15, 10. Some, a large percentage of them say, according to Medical Dental Council of Nigeria, should not even have dentistry students. Isn't that also of a concern?
Yeah, it is, because, and it is good. You know, these people deal with lives. You need to be very careful. If you don't have facilities, and I'm going to give an example. Sometimes ago, some of my brothers under their platform from Dublin, in the Republic of Ireland, came to do some kind of research in Osun State. Ralph Aregbesola was the governor at the time. They went around some of the health care facilities in the state, and they found that, in fact, in some places, no room for dentistry. They found that in some places, they were using car seats as dental chairs in some hospitals. So that informed their decision. There was one, Dr. Ogbenga Salau, Dr. Mojeed Alabi, all of them assembled themselves, and they wanted to assist the state. So what they did was to actually bring in some of these items to support the state. That is how bad it is. So when you now go to tertiary institutions, what you find is that some of these places, they don't have lecturers. You know, when you are talking about this medical and dental, it is not just, okay, in January at the University of Lagos, radiology students could not be inducted by the radiographers. The radiography students could not be inducted by the radiography regulatory body. Because they felt that, look, you may have been trained academically, but in terms of practice, the practical aspect that you needed was not there.
So my question then would be, so who is complicit? We have regulatory bodies like the MDCN, we have JAM, we have NUC, you even mentioned COREN. Now, listen, what are the roles of these regulatory bodies? Are they allowing them? Are they allowing these things to happen? Are they complicit? Are they overwhelmed, or they're just they're toothless. Like, there's, you know how we sit down and say, oh, there's nothing I can do. And then should we be looking at some form of collusion with the university prioritizing fees ahead of educational integrity? Because this thing you're saying about theoretical and practical, there has to be a balance. If you know you cannot support the practical aspect of, let's say, radiology, don't offer it in school.
Exactly.
So if these regulatory bodies are not working, you will not have heard of the case in UNICAL. So we must first commend MDCN for saying, no, this is the instruction we gave you. Sometimes you don't present candidates to MDCN until they reach a particular level. This is not...
That's dangerous.
Yes. So what I'm saying in essence is this. NUC has a responsibility to consider the curriculum for the academic work. The MDCN will have to come in to look at, oh, this is the practice world. These are the things that are in vogue now. Yeah. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? Unfortunately, because when you look at those institutions, I was talking to the Vice Chancellor of UNICAL last night, and we spoke extensively. And the man said, look, this thing predated my tenure. I didn't come in, I came in, this thing started in 2013. So they bar them, do not employ, do not admit again. What you ought to be doing is to now be graduating those one gradually.
And scale up to meet.
Scale up to meet. So, but those institutions continue, the institution continue to be admitting. You understand? Recklessly. Yeah. Until 2022, when MDCN returned again and found that, look, all these students, so it's, go to Lake City, go to Abuja, go to most of these institutions, they can't present the number of the students that they produce to either law school or MDCN for induction or nursing and midwifery council for anything. The reason is this. They have admitted so much. So probably the number they now gave them, they will now delay others. So that's why you will see people who will finish 3 years ago. They have not been presented to
the council. Yeah,
because, so, okay, for instance, in Federal University of Oyekiti today, as I'm talking to you, the law students defended their project last week. But they are not sure whether they will go to law school. You know why?
No.
The accreditation has been withdrawn or is being challenged by the Council of Legal Education.
Why?
So what they are doing now, and they are going to be the first set of the law students in that school. Now what they are going to do, what they are trying to do now is to allow them to go to youth service. You go for youth service, NYSC program. So when you go, they will be going behind the scene to go and lobby and see how they can manipulate. So if that does not work, but there is the minister, the Vice Chancellor told me yesterday, and we must commend the minister, in fairness, the Vice Chancellor told me yesterday that it is not that, that MDCN just knew. MDCN had known long ago that this thing was happening, and they were trying to resolve it together. But there is a new sheriff in town. The minister is insisting that once you do not merit it, once you don't have what it takes to admit, you go and resolve it.
Okay, pause. We need to go on a break. It's a lot. And what it's showing us is that we are once again failing Nigeria's young people. Knowingly admitting students that you cannot graduate, delaying graduation of others because you're over quota. We'll pick up this conversation after the break.
Guys, this is Jasiri, and we are failing our young once again with education. And the conversation we've had off the air is just it's a naked reality that we are not, how we say in local parlance, we are not trying. That's what we say. But what we're seeing isn't just a bureaucratic glitch. It's a clear, repeated pattern of exploitation. Students are admitted into programs that institutions know that they can't sustain. They just often collect fees and pad numbers. And then when the system fails, there's no apology. Mojeed, there's no accountability. There's no compensation. Just silence. So how do we fix this? How do we restore trust in a system that seems more invested in profit rather than in people? Of course, our guest is the chairman of the Education Writers Association of Nigeria and the team lead and editor-in-chief at DevReporting. Mojeed, thank you so much for always answering our call and allowing us take a bite of you and vent our frustrations and our anger on you. So when the conversation started, we looked at how widespread the issue is. So let's ask the question, is this practice tied to corruption or financial mismanagement? That's one, within faculties or registrars' offices. And will you tell me, or will you tell us if I ask, what other institutions have been implicated in this?
Yeah, I'm not even sure they see it as implication. And
no, now it's the way that you are saying this, the way they bite my body.
It's normal. Like it's normal. There's nothing that's going on. Why are you people making noise?
I'm giving you one instance. You have anywhere you have when the demand is higher than supply.
Yes.
This is what you are going to find. You have about 2 million candidates seeking admission every year.
Every year.
You have capacity to only absorb about 700,000.
1.3 are left.
Now, I'm now asking you one question. The small space available. I was talking to a vice chancellor yesterday. Last year admission. And we were discussing. And this vice chancellor said, Mojeed, the young ones we are having now, they are too brilliant. I am not going to admit more than my quota. What they used to do is that because they knew that they would fail. And I'm going to explain why. Before now, when there was massive corruption, you understand, in the conduct of UTME, and every student can just go and bring any result anywhere, it was very clear. So what they saw was that when they bring them in, you say, oh, this one scored 300, 250, and they bring it
by 200 level, what jam?
By 200 level, we have quota for 150. We admitted probably 160. You realize that the 150 to 160, they only could not, at the end of the day, you couldn't have more than 40 or 50. So all of them, some of them will be advised to go to other departments, asked to leave the faculty. So they now realize that, look, we can't be doing this. It means we are shortchanging ourselves. So if we admit 300, maybe we are going to have 150 at the end of the day. That was what they were doing, which was justified.
That is why the guy in UNICAL said we expected more of you to fail.
Yeah, so that was their thinking, because that was what they were seeing before. But recently, today, if you carry, and that was when they introduced post-JAMB and things like that. But they realized that recently, what JAMB was, the kind of the performance in JAMB
genuine
really
performance,
showed that this is the genuine performance of the candidate. So when they now go in, you know that tradition that if we admit 150 in excess of what we have, it will balance out. But these students now started performing very well. So what they performed, their results that they showed from UTME show that, when they go in, they continue. And the Vice Chancellor of the University of Lagos, Professor Folashade Ogunsola, told me, being a medical microbiologist, said, Mojeed, these students are performing very well. We dare not admit beyond our quota. Because we are going to run into a risk of subjecting them to any
issue. Why can't others say that?
So wait, let's talk about others. Let's go back to UNICAL. According to Light Ray Media, which is one of the organizations that has shown the spotlight on this, when the Medical and Dental Council came for accreditation, they discovered that the faculty had exceeded its student capacity and directed the university to stop admitting students into dentistry for at least 5 years. That directive was only paid for about 2 years, and then the university resumed admitting students. Following the withdrawal of provisional accreditation on July 8, 2025, the university advised the students to either transfer to other universities or leave entirely. Students were told, go home until further notice, with some being asked to either rewrite JAMB again. On Monday, the Vice Chancellor, Professor Florence Obi, according to the students, addressed them, saying she would work on a way for transfer. Mojeed, this is where I want to hear more about your conversation with the Vice Chancellor of the University of Calabar yesterday night. Basically, because I called him, I said, I'm going to ask. We have not heard officially from the minister. What is the JAMB statement on this? What is the NUC statement on this? What is the university's statement on this? You cannot transfer, go to another department, go to another university, rewrite JAMB or UTME. What did she tell you last night?
Oh, great. There are kind of conflicting reports.
Okay.
the Vice Chancellor confirmed that from 2022, the university has not admitted any single student for
dentistry. Since 2022?
Since 2022.
Okay.
3 years running now. That they only have students in 400, 500, and Part 6.
So she met them in when she
met
was,
them, and she had complied to that instruction. It's because in 2013-2014, when that directive came from MDCN, our predecessors refused to obey. They continued. Now they left the backlog for her. According to her, what she's now doing is, so they had a kind of an arrangement with MDCN to graduate them gradually. But, you know, they have a new chairman of the board of MDCN, Professor Afolabi, who is also a professor of medicine at the Lagos State, University of Lagos, College of Medicine of the University of Lagos in Idiaraba. And, you know, the minister also has his ears, and they decided that, look, rather than encouraging this kind of reckless attitude, we must stop it at once. And like I was telling you, it is not just about that university. So when they decided, they realized that these students are not going to be graduated. Because if you wait for the next 10 years, and you are graduating 10 out of about 300, when are you going to finish? So they gave them, they said, okay, they have options. The rich among them, I know they may not have problem. There are some private universities that are not meeting their quota. They can transfer their service. Like when Ukraine started, when the crisis between Ukraine and Russia, there were students that came in that were able to
absorb into that,
But I thought,
some private universities.
Sorry, please don't lose your train of thought. I'm just, as an aside, I thought in sensitive professions like medicine and surgery, dentistry, you can't just transfer mid like maybe your fourth year, third year.
No,
where are you transferring to?
No, they do. What happened is that because you run the same curriculum, because you are in the same system,
medicine.
The only thing is that they might not be able to have opportunity to go to conventional federal state universities because they too are battling their own quota. Every year you have lots of people who want to go in. And you don't also blame these institutions. You know, sometimes when you come in through political support and things like that, you have a minister who is sending lists to you. You have chairman of council sending lists to you. You have community sending lists to you. You now prioritize, who do we screen out of this? When maybe it is just 1 mark, 3 marks, 4 marks that are left. It's so competitive. Like I was saying, when you go to Obafemi Awolowo University today, there is only one student in 500 level law class. 500 level law class, there is only one student. Yes, the reason is this. When the student was admitted, he had to defer the admission. He's actually he was a busy guy. So he said, oh, I just wanted to study law. And he had to defer the admission. By the time he was coming back, the accreditation for law in OAU had been withdrawn by the Council of Legal Education. So when he returned, there was no class for his set again, apart because his set, they had moved on. So the OAU was not admitting any longer because it complied with that particular
But he had already been admitted,
but he had been admitted, and when he deferred, they approved the year he deferred to return. So when he returned, they had to admit him as the only one student. So up till today, as of 500, but 400, 300, so those one complied, which is good. You know why this is necessary? Why? It is necessary because our candidates, and that is why when you see Nigerian students, when they go abroad, they excel.
They shine.
So because the regulatory bodies, you know, it is difficult to manage the crowd that we have. So what these institutions are doing, JAMB will do its own. Monitor, do admission. You saw recently a FUTA graduate who was saying that they said the admission was illegal, even though he had about 5.0 or 4 point something CGPA. It is not that JAMB just woke up and said, you are not qualified. Because there are certain rules that universities must follow. There is something that we call Central Admission Processing System, CAPS. Why it introduced CAPS is because institutions were admitting arbitrarily. There were some institutions that they were actually notorious for that. And I wouldn't want to be mentioning names here. Some of them, they would just admit, they know. So what they would do is that by the time they return, they will now go to JAMB. And what JAMB has now been able to do, which has curbed that excesses now, is that nobody will go for youth service except there is a list, master list goes from JAMB. Because until you have admission from JAMB, I know how many parents have sent to me here, sending that their children, they have this, they could not be able to, they have not been able, whether Crawford University, this university, they will be watching me now because they know I'm coming here. Their children cannot proceed because one, some of them gain admission through the back door. Yeah, they didn't go through the central admission processing system. Some who did. You know, when you submit your list, it is not that JAMB is the one admitting candidates on behalf of the universities. But what they are doing is that, okay, we have agreed, though, it is 150 that will be the cutoff. What other requirements do you use? SSCE, you must have these 5 subjects. This particular subject must be the combination. Then after that, you must have passed our post-UTME. You list those criteria, you send them to JAMB. JAMB will automatically just upload on the central admission processing system. It will automatically rank.
It's a checklist.
Yeah, so it will automatically rank the candidates who meet the requirement. So once they meet the requirement, you know, it's a list. That's why we say JAMB conducts ranking exam, not achievement test. So once it ranks, it will, okay, this is what your capacity, current capacity is. It's 150 for law. Once it reaches the last one, it will cut off. You understand? So once it's cut off, but some will go ahead and still be bringing those below it. So
even
those one will not
automatically cut off.
So those one will not have access to the central admission processing system to print their UTM. But because they are also rushing, parents too, they are also complicit. You know that your child doesn't have admission letter.
Yes.
You have said, well, no, we will resolve it. Resolving what? Have you been able to resolve it before this person goes into the university? No. So you want to continue to be pushing.
Because you want to resolve by the end of 4 or 5 years.
A lawyer reached out to me just on my way here. Leeds City University, they are aware, according to the lawyer, that their law graduates, a whole lot of them, many of them could not be
go to law school.
Sent to law school because probably they had been over admitting all along, so they are backlogged and that they are investigating, they are taking them. So you have a lot of students who will study law and not be able to practice. Some will study medicine, they will have to wait for about 3-4 years before they could practice. So that is the challenge.
Mr. Mojeed, a lot to unpack, honestly. You know, over 2 million Nigerians seek admission into universities every year. Only about 700,000 gets admission. This has stuck with me. Can this partially be resolved or solved by opening more university? Or what process can we do moving along? Because we know this is a problem. And now that you have educated us, it's something that is entrenched already. So what can we do moving forward so that these kind of occurrences can be forestalled?
And to think that it's not just about building more universities. In fact, already we have turned universities to constituency projects. Do you know that there are universities that students are not applying to?
I was going to say that, man.
Do you understand? There are universities that students are not applying.
Please give me one. When there's one I noticed. This is a Christopher University. I didn't know it was a Gregory University. You know, there's some names that just pop up.
Those are private. So what the minister has done now is to tell the National Assembly that please, we appeal to you, stop approving universities. That's one. Number two is the fact that when you look at what we have been able to do, what we are saying is that rather than, okay, the other day we unpacked something here, the number of lecturers that UNILAG lost. We were here together. When you don't have people who are going to teach, all the universities that you are building, that is why they are reducing their carrying capacity. They are not reducing their carrying capacity because they don't have lecture room. They are not reducing their carrying capacity because they don't have all.
Universities
but
are
because they don't have
people,
human
lecturers.
resources. Where do all these private universities that have been established every morning, every night, they are relying on the existing conventional federal state universities for their lecturers to source their lecturers. So lecturers are also running away because their pay is very poor. So when you have such challenges, what we need to do is, number one, you need to attract the best to the system. Number two, you need to expand the existing carrying capacity of some institutions. Rather than building new universities, you are going to be creating, and that's why you look at them, they are mushroom institutions. ASU will call them constituency projects for most of the...
Because they become political tools.
No, they become the political, they are political tools. So what we are saying is that if you go to University of Ilorin, Ilorin has about 16,000 hectares of land. I'm not sure it has even used up to 7,000. OAU has about 13,000 hectares of land. It has not used 8,000.
Why go and get land and build a new university?
But because we do, there is politics of education in Nigeria. Yeah. In the politics of education, you want to know where you come from. How do you develop your own area? By citing a university there and attract hoodlums, not students. Because at the end of the day, these things that you say you are bringing in, they will turn out to be hoodlums. You are talking about courtesan.
Yes.
It is because they are idle. Go to some institutions. Students will have to sit on the window. You understand now?
Yeah.
To be able to listen. If you don't go early, it's better you don't go at all. So what is the essence of going to such an institution? So what we are saying is that if you expand the existing capacity, there is a university in Egypt, I think, that could admit, at least the enrollment, total enrollment is about 250,000. So if you have like 10 universities of such with 250,000 carrying capacity, do you know how much we are going to have? The highest you will see in some institutions, 3,000, 5,000.
That's like a secondary school in some places.
So that is not just the fresh student. Some cannot even admit more than 400 fresh students. So why do we, and you are going to have a vice chancellor, you have a registrar, you have a so. Why don't you expand the existing facility? But because when Jonathan created 12 additional federal universities, they were throwing it around like...
you get a car, you get a university.
So that's the challenge. Everybody. Now, you see, we have Senator Yayi. He has turned Federal Polytechnic Ilaru. They are now making it a federal university of so. And you have a minister in blue economy. In his hometown now, you go to Iragbiji, they have a federal university of agriculture and so. So that is the problem. You go to Ekpe, you have a new tertiary institution. That's the problem.
Please, aside from this, and I think it's very important, I asked my people if we had this, we can look at this in terms of the students being delayed, but let's not forget that universities are making money.
Yeah.
Let's go back, if we can get those slides of the money that UNICAL dentistry students are said to have been paying. So over the years in which they will be in this university, or they've been in the university up to now, you can see the breakdown. Year 1, 235,000 plus. Then we go into year 2. We can continue with the slides, please. We go into year 2. Into year 3 is their mid-level, 157,000, 11 students. When you go to year 4, you have about 158,000. You go to year 5, out of the total, I think the number is about 7 million or so that they've made. Is it 7 million? It's a 7. I'll get the number before we wrap this up now. So let's not also just make this look like the universities are not gaining, that they're just trying to service the sector because there's there's a larger demand than space. They're making money. But hold on, Mojeed, there was a single mother who reportedly asked when that meeting happened with the VC and the provost, that can she get a refund? What is the consequence? We can have all these conversations, but if the provost is not removed, if there's not a sanction for the university, beyond say, don't admit, what is the actual consequence?
Yeah, I think that's where we should go in. But before we go into that, let's talk about the funding. I'm not a capitalist, and in fact, I believe that Nigeria can offer free and compulsory education, quality and affordable education to everybody. But when you look at these resources, how much are we paying for private schools? Our children, how much do they pay in basic nursery and primary school? Where in the world can medical students pay this paltry sum? How much does it amount to when you convert it to dollar?
Yeah.
So our Nigerians will go to US, they will go to UK to go and pay as much as $60-something thousand. Yeah. You understand? In fact, some of them, $20,000 per just a session.
But is that an excuse? And the figure is 70,524,000 from over 300 students. 70 million plus.
There's no student that will pay 70 million in Nigeria, even if they spend 10 years in the institution. I attended a university in Nigeria. When I entered the first year, it was 1,019 naira, including bed space. At the Obafemi Awolowo University. 1,019 naira. Before I left, I was paying about 6,000 naira. So that was the highest I think I paid. Now, if you are saying 200-something thousand naira, I'm not justifying the increase because the money that the leaders are splashing away, using for convoy, using on unnecessary things, can actually be diverted to support education. But what I'm saying in essence is this. When you look at how much they are paying, it is not that the universities are making money from them. When you look at how much, there are institutions that are owing as much as 1 billion on electricity.
Yes.
Do you know what it means? These facilities that they have, which government is paying them?
Yeah.
The government only pays the lecturers. You pay the staff. Once you pay the staff, what happens to keep the institution running? If there is no light for just 2 days, there's a problem on the campus. If there is no water for just 2 days, there's a problem on the campus. To keep our campuses running, clean alone, you know what it means? I'm not justifying the excesses that they should now just admit unnecessarily. I'm only telling us that this is a whole lot for all of us. And that is why I think the step the minister is taking, if you look at the case of FUTA students, because of his own case, just to grant him exemption, they had to accommodate about 4,000 other candidates, other students in similar circumstances, who had gained admission illegitimately because the authorities admitted them and they could not perfect their papers. So what we needed to do as a country, the solution is very simple. We must be able to sit down. We must live by the rule.
Yes.
We must improve the system. How do we improve the system? You must admit, you must appoint quality lecturers. But to get quality lecturers, you must pay them well.
Yeah. Well, we have to stop on that point. But this politics of education you mentioned, I think that's a whole other conversation we have to take up at another time. We've turned educational system into a ping-pong tennis ball match.
I'm telling you.
Thank you so much. Education is supposed to be the great equalizer, the path to opportunity, dignity, and a better future. But what happens when the very institutions meant to build dreams start breaking them? This conversation isn't just about unaccredited programs or over-admission. It's about a system that profits from young people's hope, only to leave them stranded when it matters the most. We will continue to normalize this quiet betrayal, or will we demand a higher standard of honesty and accountability and of care? Because if a degree becomes a gamble, then education has already failed. This is Jasiri, where truth stays enrolled and the lessons don't end in silence. We'll see you next time. Thank you very much, Mr. Mojeed. Thank you.
Thank you.